The end of the Cold War in the early 1990s was a pivotal moment in world history, as the collapse of the Soviet Union marked the end of a decades-long conflict between the two superpowers of the time, the United States and the Soviet Union. However, despite the end of the Cold War, tensions between Russia and the West, particularly the United States and its NATO allies, have persisted in the decades since. In this analysis, we will examine the ongoing conflict between NATO and Russia, exploring the root causes of these tensions and assessing the potential for resolution. At the heart of the ongoing conflict between NATO and Russia lies a fundamental disagreement about the future of Europe. Russia has long viewed itself as a great power with a rightful sphere of influence in the former Soviet republics and satellite states of Eastern Europe. NATO, on the other hand, sees itself as a defensive alliance designed to protect Europe from external threats, including those posed by Russia. As a result, NATO has expanded its membership to include many of the former Soviet satellite states, which Russia sees as encroaching on its sphere of influence. The expansion of NATO has been a key driver of tensions between Russia and the West in the post-Cold War era. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, NATO began to expand its membership, with many former Soviet satellite states joining the alliance. This expansion was seen by Russia as a direct threat to its security and sovereignty, and it has responded by adopting a more assertive posture towards the West. This has included increasing military spending and modernizing its armed forces, as well as conducting military exercises and engaging in cyberattacks against Western targets. The conflict between NATO and Russia has also been fueled by geopolitical factors beyond Europe. The United States and its allies have sought to contain Russian influence in other regions, particularly the Middle East. This has led to direct conflicts between Russian and Western forces, such as the ongoing conflict in Syria. The two sides have also clashed over issues such as nuclear arms control, with the United States accusing Russia of violating arms control agreements and Russia accusing the United States of developing new nuclear weapons. Despite these tensions, there have been some attempts to improve relations between NATO and Russia in recent years. One such effort was the signing of the NATO-Russia Founding Act in 1997, which established a framework for cooperation between the two sides. However, this agreement has largely been ignored in practice, and relations between the two sides have continued to deteriorate. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine, a move that was widely condemned by the international community and led to a sharp escalation in tensions between Russia and the West. So, what is the potential for a resolution to the conflict between NATO and Russia? Unfortunately, the prospects for a quick and easy resolution are not good. The conflict between the two sides is deeply rooted in historical, geopolitical, and ideological factors, and there is little sign that either side is willing to make significant concessions. Furthermore, the conflict has been exacerbated by the rise of nationalist and populist movements in both Russia and the West, which have tended to take a more confrontational stance towards the other side. That being said, there are some steps that could be taken to ease tensions and improve relations between NATO and Russia. One such step would be for both sides to engage in more open and transparent dialogue. This could include regular high-level meetings between NATO and Russian officials, as well as more informal exchanges between academics, journalists, and other members of civil society. Additionally, both sides could work to reduce tensions in areas where they have direct conflicts, such as the Middle East and Eastern Europe. Another potential avenue for improving relations between NATO and Russia is to focus on areas of mutual interest. While there are certainly many areas where the two sides disagree, there are also areas where their interests align. One such area is arms control, where both sides have an interest in reducing the risk of nuclear war. Despite recent disagreements over arms control agreements, such as the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces (INF) treaty, there is still scope for both sides to work together to reduce the risk of a nuclear conflict. Finally, it is worth noting that a resolution to the conflict between NATO and Russia will also depend on wider geopolitical factors beyond Europe. The United States, as the leading member of NATO, will play a key role in determining the direction of relations between the two sides. However, the United States is itself undergoing a period of political and social upheaval, with increasing polarization and the rise of populist movements. This could make it more difficult for the United States to take a conciliatory stance towards Russia, particularly given the ongoing investigations into Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. In conclusion, the conflict between NATO and Russia is a complex and multifaceted issue that is unlikely to be resolved in the near future. The tensions between the two sides are deeply rooted in historical, geopolitical, and ideological factors, and both sides have taken increasingly assertive stances in recent years. However, there are still some steps that could be taken to ease tensions and improve relations, such as increased dialogue and cooperation on issues of mutual interest. Ultimately, the resolution of the conflict will depend on wider geopolitical factors, including the role of the United States and the trajectory of global politics in the coming years.